The summer of 2015 marked the 40th anniversary of one of my favorite films, Jaws. Even though I've been watching this film since I was a kid, I never had the opportunity to see it in the way it was meant to be seen, in theaters. So when I found out that one of my local theaters was showing the film for a couple of days to celebrate the anniversary, I got my little ass down there and said, "One, please." Yeah, I went by myself. I'm married and all, he just doesn't like me. Anyway, I got there a little early, and as I was waiting for the film to start, I could overhear all of these conversations. People were telling stories about how much the movie meant to them and how it made them scared to go bathroom, etc. My point is that everyone in that theater, with the possible exception of the couple of kids that were there, had seen Jaws before, presumably multiple times. But when this infamous scene happens, everyone jumped. We all knew it was coming, but it still got us. Up to that point, I had always thought that I was the only one who was still startled by that scene, but as it turns out, I was wrong. I think it's safe to say that the average jump scare tends to not only be incredibly forced, predictable, and overused, but also likely loses any effectiveness it may have after the first viewing. This jump scare, however, even after multiple viewings, still works. Steven Spielberg has been pranking people for over 40 years with the same prank. It's amazing. Ever since my experience at the theater, I've wanted to analyze this particular scene, and after a year and a half, I've finally gotten around to it. It takes me a little while to make videos, sorry. So let's get into a few different reasons why I feel that this classic jump scare continues to deliver after all these years. So let's start with the most obvious thing. This film uses what you expect to happen against you. Many filmmakers use this technique in their storytelling to manipulate and misdirect the audience. This can also be an effective tool for executing a decent jump scare.
Mr. Hammond, I think we're back in business.
James Wan pranked me twice doing this. Once in Insidious and again in The Conjuring 2. You anticipate the scare in both cases, they just don't come from where you'd expect them to. Although in The Conjuring 2 I should have seen it coming because for some reason if Patrick Wilson is in the movie and it's daytime, whatever is haunting your house is probably right behind you. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, good job, pal. Jaws does this beautifully. When Hooper jumps into the water to examine the sunken boat, we expect the source of the impending scare to be, of course, the shark. Not this guy.
When we get them silly bastards down in that rock pile, there'll be some fun. They'll wish their fathers had never met their mothers when they start taking their bottoms out and slamming into them rocks, boy.
Also, he's dead. And this isn't a ghost movie, it's a shark movie, so you don't expect Ben Gardner's severed head to be goofing on anyone.
Into them rocks, boy.
But if expectation is what fools you the first time, then why does this scene retain its effectiveness through multiple watches? This is not the original shot from the first cut of the film. The original version didn't get the response that Spielberg wanted from test audiences, so he reshot the scene in a swimming pool, more specifically his editor's swimming pool. The take that he ended up using got the scream out of audiences that he originally wanted, but I don't think that he expected them to never stop screaming for 41 years. Jaws took home 3 Oscars the following year, one of which was given to Verna Fields for her outstanding editing. The skillful way in which this film is edited is one of the many things that sets it apart from the typical monster/horror movie. For example, let's take a look at another famous scare from later in the film where the shark makes its first appearance. Brody is busy scooping chum into the water and is positioned on the right side of the shot. Just as he says,
"Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit."
This happens on the left side of the shot. We cut to the best reaction shot of all time, cut to Brody's POV, and then cut back to Brody backing away into his famous line,
"You're gonna need a bigger boat."
This perfectly mirrors what happens earlier in the film with Ben Gardner's boat. We have Hooper busy with his task on the right, Ben entering the shot on the left. We cut to Hooper's initial reaction, cut to Hooper's POV, and then cut back to Hooper removing himself from the situation. This method allows the scare to sink in naturally and not feel forced. When we're startled in real life, it sometimes takes a second for it to sink in because we were most likely just going about our business without a care in the world a couple seconds before. Modern jump scares tend to draw attention to themselves several seconds before they happen because we typically get this type of shot first. The "I'm treading very carefully because I expect something is about to happen" shot. With this type of setup, we already know that a scare is coming, so the only way to elicit a physical reaction from the audience is to make the scare incredibly loud. But, lucky for us, the other 2 Oscars that Jaws took home were for Best Sound Mixing and Best Original Score, which brings me to my final point. In regards to the people who saw this film back in the summer of 1975, I can imagine that this scene must have been especially surprising for them considering jump scares just weren't as common in films. They existed for sure, but they were executed a little bit differently and used much less frequently than they are today. As horror became more saturated with jump scares, they became incredibly formulaic. This formula typically being several seconds of complete quiet, followed by the scare accompanied with a burst of very loud music. More often than not, you're more startled by the music than you are by what's happening visually. To me, this is the equivalent of sneaking up behind somebody and just screaming. Of course they're gonna be startled. You're not an artist, you're just an asshole. Not only does Jaws have one of the best and most well-executed scores of all time, composed of course by the incredible John Williams, but it's used perfectly during this scene. This score goes hand in hand with all of my previous points and is the final touch that makes this scene so effective. First of all, going back a little to expectation, we're trained by the film at this point to know that this music means that the shark is close by. This isn't playing here, so we aren't really sure what's going to happen. Unlike the typical lead up to a jump scare, the music doesn't cut out entirely, it just changes to suit the suspenseful atmosphere. Typically, when a modern jump scare occurs, the burst of loud sound happens at the exact same time the scare enters the shot. We register both simultaneously, but again, your initial reaction is more to what you've just heard and not what you've just seen. In our Jaws scene, we are given the opportunity to register the scare visually before the score picks up to enhance it. So you're already pretty freaked out before the score kicks in, essentially taking you from here to here. The most well-known portion of John Williams' Jaws score is, of course, once again. But next time you find yourself watching this film, I encourage you to listen to how beautifully the score complements every part of it. It ebbs, flows, and crashes, kind of like the ocean. And that is how you win 5 Academy Awards and get nominated for 50? Holy shit. And that also concludes my Jaws, Ben Gardner's Boat, Jump Scare, Breakdown, Happy New Year special 2017. So, like this video if you found it interesting, subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for watching.